Today's presentation is on the topic of correctly coding benign central nervous system tumors and has been created on behalf of the Missouri Cancer Registry Research Center. My name is Kirsten McDowell and I'll be the presenter for this topic. Also, I'd like to thank my fellow coworker Babette Langeneckert for creating these slides that we will be viewing today. To start, I would like to acknowledge that this presentation is made possible through the Missouri Cancer Registry and Research Center, which is supported in part by a cooperative agreement between the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, and a surveillance contract between DHSS and the University of Missouri. So first, we're going to do a quick review of the benign brain and central nervous system sites that became eligible for reporting on January 1st, 2004. So as you can see here, the list includes such sites as the meninges, brain, spinal cord, and cranial nerves, among others. Also, as noted at the bottom of the slide, benign tumors of the peripheral nerves, coded under the ICDO site range of 47C47, are not to be included in this category of benign central nervous system tumors. The National Cancer Institute has several site-specific training modules that cancer registrars can find useful in their daily registry operations. Also for learning about basic anatomy and terminology, and also for keeping current with coding and staging standards for cancer registration. So as you can see on this diagram here on the right side of this slide, it is from the site-specific module for brain and other nervous system tumors under the anatomy section for meninges. And as you can see, the meninges has three layers surrounding the brain and spinal cord. The outer layer is the dura mater, which consists of a tough fibrous connective tissue. The middle thin cobweb-like layer is given the name of the arachnoid layer, and the innermost layer is named the pia mater. This is a very delicate and thin membrane layer that is tightly bound to the surface of the brain. Note that the protective meningeal layer is between the brain and the bone layer, which you may also see referred to from time to time as the cranium. So also it is very important to be aware of the anatomy of the meninges and also the terminology associated with this structure. This will help ensure coding benign central nervous system tumors to the correct ICDO site. So how can you determine if the site you are looking at should in fact be coded to the meninges layer? Well, one clue to look for is on the imaging. It could mention that the tumor involvement is located within the cranium, or it could also be described as intracranial. This is an indication that the tumor should be coded to cranial meninges C70.0 and not the nonspecific code of meninges C70.9. Another term that points to this C70.0 code is the term intradural. This is a clue that the tumor is located within the dura mater layer of the cranial meninges. Also, similarly for the site of spinal meninges, if the imaging shows an enhancing mass in the vertebral body, then the primary site should be coded to spinal meninges C70.1 and not to the nonspecific site of meninges NOS C70.9. So what are the key points to consider when determining if a meningioma is a single primary or a multiple primary? You may be surprised to learn that in the 2007 MPH rules, laterality was not used to determine the multiple primaries for meningiomas, and we were directed to code them as a single primary. There was a note found on page 10 of the MPH primary and histology instructions that stated when determining multiple primaries for reportable benign and borderline intracranial or central nervous system tumors, then these rules do not apply. So although the site C70.0 was included in the paired site table in the MPH rules, we were not to use this in conjunction with Rule M5 for multiple meningiomas. This fact was brought to our attention in an Easter webinar produced on August 3, 2017. Because so many of us, myself included, had missed this point, a decision was made to allow for the continuing reporting of multiple meningiomas based on laterality until the new 2018 solid tumor rules became available. So in 2018, a new solid tumor manual was issued. However, as of the recording of this presentation, the manual is currently in draft form waiting for final approval. So please be aware that there may be some changes from what is being presented here. Solid Tumor Rule M10 for meningiomas directs the registrar to abstract a single primary when two or more separate, non-contiguous meningiomas arise on the same side or on both sides of the cranial meninges, or if the tumor is on the midline and in either the right or left of the cranial meninges. Also, it's important to keep in mind that this rule only applies to meningiomas. So on this slide, we have the new table for paired sites in the 2018 Solid Tumor Manual for the non-malignant CNS tumors. We are instructed to not use this table when determining multiple primaries unless we are directed to do so by the solid tumor rules. Also, please note that the site cerebral meninges has 2 asterisks on this table. This indicates that although we are not using this table for determining multiple primaries, we are still directed to code the laterality for this site. As I had previously stated, we only use Table 7 when instructed to do so. The table identifies primary sites for which laterality must be coded and also primary sites for which laterality may be coded. Next, we are going to examine the primary site Pituitary Gland, C75.1. This gland is known as the main endocrine gland because it produces hormones that control other glands and also many body functions including growth. And as you can see on this diagram to the right of this slide, the pituitary gland is a pea-sized structure located at the base of the brain and is attached to the brain by a thin stalk. The histology for this should be coded to 8272 with a behavior code of 0. The pituitary gland in the ICD-10 manual has its own special histologic code and should not be confused with the nonspecific code for adenoma NOS, which is coded to 8140 with a behavior code of 0. So the next site we are going to examine today is acoustic neuroma with histology code 9560. This type of usually slow-growing tumor develops from the balance and hearing nerves supplying the inner ear. This type of tumor stems from an overproduction of Schwann cells, which are cells that normally wrap around nerve fibers like an onion skin to help support and insulate nerves. You might also find these tumors titled as vestibular schwannoma, an acoustic neuronoma, or an acoustic neurolymoma. So for primary site of acoustic neuroma, the primary site should be coded to acoustic nerve C72.4 and not to the nonspecific site code for cranial nerve NOS C72.5. Also note the acoustic neuromas fall under the category of cranial nerve C72 and not to be confused with peripheral nerves of the autonomic nervous system coded under the range of C7447. Benign and borderline tumors have their own designated sequence codes of 60 through 88. A solitary non-malignant neoplasm is coded to 60. However, if the patient develops a second non-malignant neoplasm, the first one in the sequence is changed to 61, the second becomes 62, and then continues sequentially from there. So with the new 2018 SEER Summary Stage Manual, benign and borderline brain, central nervous system, and intracranial gland tumors are coded to 8, which has a new designation as benign and borderline tumors. Also note that the 2015 SEER Summary Manual also had the code 8 for benign borderline tumors, but it had a different designation as not applicable. Code 8 was not originally included in the 2000 SEER Summary Stage Manual because these type of tumors did not become reportable until 2004. So that concludes today's presentation. And as you can see here, this slide lists the resources used for the presentation, including the NACER webinar from the Central Nervous System from August 3, 2017. Also, you might want to check out the Missouri Cancer Registry website. Under the Education tab, you can request access to the recorded versions of these monthly NACER webinars. These are a great resource, which are free for keeping up with changes in the cancer registry field. So on this slide, we provided our contact data, so if there are any questions about this presentation, you can contact us. Also, please note that our 800 number is available for abstractors, and any are welcome to call with any questions they may have, and many have found this to be a very valuable resource. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation, and this will conclude our recording. Please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and if you have found this presentation useful for your registry work in some way, please give us a like and consider sharing this with your fellow registrars.